So here is the Bible, the Human Handbook by Joseph James. I've, over the years, copied pages out of that and shown people all about it. But the basic thing is, in your gut is a bacteria, thermophilic bacteria that operate at 140 degrees. That's their favorite. They live good at 140 degrees. And they just gobble up human feces at that level with the right amount of sawdust, carbon-nitrogen ratio correct, and all of a sudden they're killing everything in there in a few hours. Minutes even if you get the temperature. So the whole idea is to get the proper ratio, 30-to-1, of carbon and nitrogen. The nitrogen comes every day. We give this little brown, warm pile of stuff, and we drop it right into grandmother water's maw and put it in the toilet. Drinking water gets polluted at that point by our own stuff, but that's not waste that we have. That is a resource and can be turned into just good old dirt with a little sawdust. So what we do is I developed a new toilet seat. Quite efficient. When I first made them, I got a toilet seat and I clamped it onto here and it just tipped over the whole thing. You know. So what's in the bucket here is, first of all, I've lined the bucket with a paper bag, a compostable item, so that can get dumped right in compost. The little handles can get dumped right in there, and then you just wad it in there so that the edges get captured by this, so you can sit on the edge without making a big one. And it's not the rubber kind, which is black. It costs more because that just kind of gets gummy. But this stuff stays good. It's what you put on pipes under your house to keep them hot. And then this little thing seems to come off at the edge here, so for now I refine it. The problem with this is it's 3 inches short because it's only 6 feet and it takes 3 feet 3 inches to go around one of these buckets. But anyway, I just put that in there for safety during the demo so it won't fall off while we're doing it. Okay, so that's perfectly good, ready to go. Compostable scraps are in here. Toilet paper tubes go in there, the whole thing. So, the next
You have to use a certain type of toilet paper.
No. Well, paper's better. Plastic wouldn't work quite as good, but most plastics will biodegrade. Let's see. I've got 2 setups here, and I'm hoping that somebody will actually want one of them. Okay, so here is our sawdust, and we're just lining the bottom so that the first time you put scat in there, it falls onto something. All right, so next move is you move, all right? Sit right down. Notice how comfy it is on the new styrofoam. It's really comfy. Of course, I got my pants on too. Okay, hoop pile, all right? Now this is the chapter that's always left out, but check your own scat. Is it runny? Is it an S-curve? Is it what? Most people don't even do that in water. Actually, water is a really good way to do it because it's kind of floating. You know, you can see if it's got too much oil, if it floats and falls. But we're going to have to learn to do it not in water, drinking water especially, and learn to do it so we're composting. So we got it filled up. Now what we do, once the pile is there, we cover it. Oh, and the toilet paper. Let's put a little token toilet paper in there. We cover everything that's in there with, say again?
We can use the toilet paper in this.
Absolutely, anything that'll compost. All right, so now what you're doing is you're covering up your little pile. If there's any flies around, you'll notice that if you don't cover the pile, boom, if you never had a fly all day, there'll be flies there. Somehow they know. But if you cover it and they can't see it, there is no smell and no flies. So it's that simple. You just keep it covered. Once in a while, every once in a while, I bang it down so it gets there. But after about a week, this is going to fill up, and you don't try to fill it up to here. I mean, there's no place to sit. Then what you do is you take the rim off, and you take the bag, and you fold it in over on top of it, and I recommend filling it up to about half full so you don't get on it. But a week per person, per bucket. Then you just fold this over, fold this over, fold this over, fold this over, and boom, drop it in your compost bin. Now that's the big deal about human manure. You want to be able to compost it. So actually, step 1 is compost. Step 2 is scat catcher. So everybody should be thinking, how are we going to compost in whose backyard when during this operation?
Because the thing is, you can't bury it. If you bury the shit and rob it of oxygen, it'll just rot. It won't compost.
That's right. You want it above
Must be
ground.
above ground.
It has to have moisture of the right level, but you want to feed the thermophilic bacteria so that they are killing everything. In China, they collect, they call it night soil, and they collect it and they put it right on their fields.
That's
Actually,
true.
they put it in water and make a slurry out of it and put it right on their fields.
Yeah.
And so anybody that visits from next door dies from their viruses. But if you've been inoculated to it, it looks just fine to you. So they live in these little patches of people who have acclimated to their viruses over the few hundred years, and it's just fine. If you compost it, then folks from China can come over here and grow stuff in American humanure and make good food.
And nobody gets sick.
So like I've got a compost
Excellent.
already started.
Excellent.
So I could already just
Right
You
in
wouldn't
there. In
add that
6
to that,
months,
would
you'll
you?
have dirt. And if your compost is
Wow.
above ground and the sow bugs and the earthworms can get up in there, so you can get bioturbidity, then even the stuff in the corner, because when you put a compost pile, what I usually do is line it with about a foot of straw, because you don't want the manure right into the soil, and you don't want the water you're pushing in there leaching pathogens into the soil.
Okay.
So you give it a little bed of straw. But after the 6 months or a year that you've let this sit, all that's mixed up. Everything in the corner where you think there ought to be a wad of straw is turned into dirt. Somehow the animals have just made this whole thing.
Sweet. After a year, it's sweet alone.
Oh
Anyway.
yeah.
And if
Like-
you keep it covered, there's
Now,
no
when you-
smell or
when
flies
you-
the whole
Do you
time.
have to,
When-
you know,
you
like
do
with
not
normal
turn it.
compost, you turn it?
That's where you have to read Jenkins. He shows you the charts, how much nutrient gets lost to the air when you turn it.
And it doesn't get hot.
And so in the commercial operations, they turn it 3 times a year. They can do about 3 crops a year. All of those have about a third the nutrient that yours is going to have in it. So what's the deal? So just leave it around, keep it high nutrient, and
And
there
then
you
it
have
get the full heat. When you
it.
turn
Yeah, it
it,
has to get to full heat. Anyway, it's
What
easy.
size of compost do you recommend?
Well, what I like is 4 pallets. And you can screw them together with a screw gun, or you can tape it with a strap or something, but there you got an instant compost.
and if you do
And
two
that
like
lasts
that
for how-
side by side,
That
then
could,
as
that
one
could last
fills up,
a
you
it would
start
last a
on the
long
next
time
one,
for a family.
and you can use the first one.
Long time.
So actually, when you first get started, you don't really have anything for a year.
That's right. Absolutely. And you want to sit there as long as you
Yeah, it
can
doesn't stay in there.
so that you get the temperature up.
But you're saying you can mix the human manure right in your other compost.
Kitchen scraps have exactly the same carbon-nitrogen ratio, the ideal carbon-nitrogen ratio, as sawdust and scat,
We tried
human
it,
scat.
not in.
Right, but human scab, like you said earlier, has the viruses and all this. You're
But it
saying-
also has the thermophilic bacteria. And when you put that in with your food, it's
They won't
anything that's in the
melt
food that
treated
might be a
You
problem
don't want
gets
pressure
cooked
Yeah,
in
some
food.
of our
As long
food
as it
is.
isn't pressure treated.
Well, if it's not organic, you can have stuff in it that you don't like. But
Hayward
most of the
down the end here,
pesticides are going to
we
get
get it.
wiped out at that temperature.
Okay,
And he
so
set
that
it
you're
up
saying
right
it's the
at home.
temperature.
Temperature.
That
And
kills
that-
the.
and
that
think
kills
about
the-
this.
Well, it would kill the bacteria, but it would kill the viruses as well.
Absolutely. Read the book. He's got the chart.
Oh, he's.
And
Oh,
like-
okay.
But degree thermophilic bacteria is in the human gut. And if the Romans had figured this out, they wouldn't have trashed all of the world
Right.
with what was left behind
Yep.
their armies.
So ideally, if you
The Romans
don't
have a lot to
a
answer.
farm or a garden,
Human manure. Oh, that's cute.
we still think it's better to just put it in the dumpster than to put it in the drinking water.
Yeah.
Right, we do this
It's
no
not
matter
a
what.
perfect
If we
solution.
can't find a place to compost it,
Then we just throw it out.
Burger King's usually got a dumpster right in the back of it. Now,
With at least 20 gallons of water,
here's a
you
cute
go to
little
the
item if
garbage.
you want to do it that way. You get the bag lady bags from Safeway, the ones that come at the end of the aisle. And it just so happens that these bags, so what you do is instead of putting that in first, here, hang on to that side there, and let's get this wrapped around.
These are about to come down the legal stuff.
It just so happens
Where you get that sinus?
that at a lumber yard, that fits right in there. So when you fold this down, all 4 corners down, and then you take one of these. Now remember, we were having a sanitary process here so far. No problem with the county so far. Anyway, you put this over here. That must not be the right size. And then you dump the big plop into there, fold the bag over, tie it up, off to wherever you're going. If you end up finding compost, you can take the bag off, although most of these are turning out to be biodegradable. And of course, you don't have to use a paper bag. You could use whatever you want, particularly if you're not going to compost. But I recommend keep it in your mind, composting. So anyway, that's
So they'll sell you all kinds
so-called
of
bottom line.
Yes.
fancy composting toilets.
It's pretty revolutionary.
But